The Mozilla documentation defines a closure as a combination of a function together with references to its surrounding state. The easy definition is, a closure gives you access to anything outside of the current scope. In JavaScript, closures are created every time a function is created. So this function is a closure, and of course it has access to the variables within it. But if we move the variable outside of the function, we can see that it still has access to the variable. So here the function scope is a closure, but the global scope can also be accessed within the function. Here's another example. Suppose we have a counter and we want the counter to be available to all functions. We could use a global variable along with a function to increase the counter. The problem here is that any code on the page could change the counter without calling the add function. So the variable should be local to the add function to protect it. So we could move the variable within the function and then return the counter, but this will not work because we reset the local counter every time we call the function. An inner function can solve this. When nesting functions in JavaScript, all functions have access to the scope above them because of closures. Here, the plus function has access to the counter variable in the parent function. We're almost there, but not quite yet. We can't access the plus function from outside, and we're still resetting the counter every time we call the function. This is where self-invoked functions come in handy. We'll change this into the variable add and define it as a self-invoked function by adding the parentheses at the end. Because of this, the function will only run once, resetting the counter to 0 and returning a function expression. Now when we call the add function, we are accessing the inner function, but still have access to the counter in the parent scope, even after the parent function has closed, all because of closures. JavaScript does not have a native way of creating a private method or variable, but by using closures, we can emulate private variables. Now the counter is protected by the scope of the anonymous function and can only be changed using the add function. This has been a 90-ish second JavaScript January.